Hi there. In this short video, we're going to explain what you see in SERPsketch when you view the results of your campaign sketches. We're not going to cover any of the setup here, so if you're after instructions for that, you can find the link in the comments or on our videos page on our website. A quick recap before we dive in. Campaign sketches enable you to report on your share of page 1 for multiple keywords in a topic cluster or keyword set. You can report on a frequent basis so that you can track your page 1 share over time. What's important to note in SERPsketch is that you can compare any 2 points in time in the data. But obviously the first time you run a sketch, your point A and point B will be exactly the same date and time. Let's take a look at a campaign that's just run for the first time. Here's a campaign for luxury watches. At the top of the tool, we can see an overview area. Here's where you'll see your share of space on page 1 plotted on a graph over time. Every time a sketch runs, be it daily, weekly or monthly, you'll see new plots across the graph. But since it's the first time we've run it, we can see these small points on the left. We can see the space our owned domains occupy on page 1 across our keyword set. In this case, 6.6% of the available space. Partner space occupies 11.3% of the share. Competitors have a large 51.8% share of space on Google Page 1 SERPs. We keep Other toggled off for the graph because in many cases the other space can be quite large, at least initially, before you start to recategorize any relevant domains. We'll come on to that shortly. You can toggle Other on if you prefer. The next tab is Details, which at this stage is really just a summary of the settings for our campaign. Note that here you can edit the frequency of your campaign if you need to. The next tab shows the domain list. We'll have set up the domains when first setting up this sketch. All of the domains are colour-coded and you can compare how often these have appeared in page 1 results in terms of instances. That means a link from that domain has appeared in page 1 for at least one keyword in this campaign. The domain list prioritises your owned competitor and partner domains, and the other domains that might appear on page 1 is by default toggled off, but it's easy to toggle on and see whether there are any domains not categorised correctly. Let's have a quick look. Here's a domain called watchcenter.com. It sells watches online and also stocks the luxury watches that we stock too, so we definitely want to add that one as a competitor. To do that, it's really easy. We point our mouse on the orange circle to the left of that domain name and click to change the domain type to competitor rather than other. If you've run a sketch and see large chunks of other domains, it's worth reviewing the list and ensuring you recategorize anything relevant. We can delve deeper into the domains in a moment. The final tab in the top half of the page is for notifications. You'll have set this up when you set up your sketch, but here you can adjust who should receive notifications about the campaign if you need to. Before we move on to the juicy data that SERPsketch captures, let's just take a quick look at the action buttons. Even if you've scheduled a campaign to run at a certain frequency, you can always run a sketch at any ad hoc time by clicking Run. This will capture a sketch from that exact point in time. This could be useful, for example, if you suddenly noticed a drop-off in conversions and wanted to see if SERPsketch could identify the reason. You can also pause your campaign at any time. Note that if you pause a campaign, but then your campaign end date lapses, you won't be able to unpause it, but you would be able to duplicate it. Next is the option to do just that, duplicate your campaign. We covered that in a separate short video, but it's very easy to do. Next, you can delete a campaign sketch if you need to. You can't retrieve deleted sketches at a later date, so only do this if you're sure. And finally, you can request that your sketch is retained indefinitely. Campaigns in SERPsketch are automatically removed 3 months after the last sketch run for that campaign. So if you do want to keep it for longer than that, make sure you toggle this on. Okay, let's move on to the good stuff. Remember, we've only run this sketch once so far, so I'm going to cover everything you can see after a single run. But to touch on what happens when you have at least 2 sets of results, you'll start to see comparisons between the 2 dates. We cover that in another video. Link is in the comments or on our website. Starting here with the Keywords tab. Here we see a list of all the keywords in this campaign. We can filter by keywords or filter by tags here. We can sort our lists easily by clicking at the top of the relevant column. We can see that for the keyword Ulysse Nardin watch, we have 18% of the share of space on page 1. We can also see our many competitors own 42% of the share on page 1 for that keyword. What's perhaps more notable is that for women's sailing watch, 78% of the space is categorised as other. If we click into any of our keywords, we get a similar view at the top of the page, a graphical representation of our total share of page 1 for that individual keyword. And again, like in the campaign overview, we'll be able to see that over time. We again see the list of domains that have appeared on page 1 for your whole keyword set. But if we sort by instances, we can see the number of instances that domain has appeared for that specific keyword. We can choose to toggle on to show other domains and check if we're missing any competitors or partners and recategorize them. The Share of Space tab gives us the numerical breakdown of the owned domain's share of space on the whole page 1 SERP. But we know for this keyword we have no share of space, so let's nip back and go for one where we know we own a higher share. Now looking at the SERP space breakdown, we can see our share of page is 18%. Underneath the overview section is a visualization of the page 1 SERP for that individual keyword. The visualization not only indicates which features are situated on the page and where, but also the share of space that feature takes up on the available page 1 space, and whether that's owned by your domains, your competitors, your partners or others. When you hover your mouse over the boxes, you can see the URL that space relates to, but you can also toggle from viewing SERP space to viewing all the URLs. Everything remains colour coordinated to the different domain types. Let's now go back to the main campaign view and see more details about our keyword set. After the Keywords tab, we see a tab called SERP Features. This is where we can see how visible each of Google's SERP features has been across your whole keyword set, not just individual keywords. It's all the different features of the SERPs that have been triggered by our keywords. You can also see the share owned by each domain type for each feature. So here we can see our own share of organic space. This overview of SERP features can be really insightful. In our example, we can see related searches and questions taking up 23% of the SERP space, but we don't own any of that space ourselves. So perhaps we need to invest some time in creating content to answer key questions. In other examples, shopping and PPC ads might take up a higher percentage of space, so we may need to invest more in competing for ad share. Underneath the bar chart view, we have donut charts. These show your total owned space share of that feature. Organic features occupy 68% of the total space on our keyword SERPs, and we have 9% of that. We can see our share across all the other features too. Finally, we can see the same details but shown in tabular format. The next tab is the domain list. Here's where we see every domain that has appeared for page 1 for our keyword set. The domain may have only appeared once for one keyword, or it may have appeared multiple times. You can easily sort the list as required. Scrolling to the bottom, we'll see there's been 272 domains that have appeared on page 1 of Google for those 100 keywords that we added in this campaign. Google and unspecified are both covered with some explanations in here, but essentially it's either links that we can't get to the bottom of, or they are Google internal links, so things like related searches, occasionally shopping or map packs. We can see our domain at the top, with several competitors bringing up the rear. We can sort by instances or percentage of share. You can scroll across and see and sort by any of the Google features too. The next tab we see is Questions. Here we can see all of the People Also Asked questions that have appeared in the keyword set. So each one of these questions will have appeared at least once for one of our keywords. You can sort by the total instances and see which questions have appeared most often. And you get to see every question, not just a subset. You can hover or click on the question to see which page it takes you to, or you can expand the question with the little arrow and see the exact keywords that triggered that question. Again, you can sort any of the columns or toggle off certain views. You can also filter by specific questions or keywords or tags. Moving along to the next tab, you'll see Related Searches. Similarly to questions, you can sort related searches by the most frequently appearing terms and can expand to see the individual keywords, and you can filter your lists too. Let me point out here that you can export your campaign data at any time and get a CSV file with all of your results that you can use it with other data outside of SERPsketch or import into Looker Studio or similar tools. The next tab is Annotations. This shows you events in the history of your sketch, such as the date it was created. You can add your own annotations too. For example, let's say you have 0 share of people also ask questions and decide to make a concerted effort to build out that content. You could note that on here and review in a month or two when that content effort has resulted in an increased share. The final tab is Insights. When you first run a sketch, you won't see anything here. But move on to our video that covers what you see when you've run a sketch more than once.